Good day, welcome to Marc's quick and hopefully painless video tutorial on UWISpace. UWISpace is the University of the West Indies institutional repository. Many universities have repositories very similar to UWISpace, and what they do is gather together documentation, whether it be administrative, research, or historical, and make it available, typically free of charge, to the public. And so what we're going to do today is take a look at how UWISpace can be used for educational research. For those of you who haven't met me, or perhaps don't remember what I look like, here's a recent picture of me delivering meatballs to a friend of mine living in his winter residence. And hopefully the snow will be melted soon and he'll be back on the road. So, UWISpace is a place where faculty researchers affiliated with the university can store various papers that are their research output, including journal articles published in open access or otherwise freely available journals wherever they're coming from. And it also includes the Caribbean Curriculum Journal, which is published at the University of the West Indies and invites researchers from around the world to contribute, including local and regional. UE doctoral dissertations are included, as well as master's theses and the sort of project reports that you are currently or will be working on at some point. It includes conference proceedings, so various papers that were delivered at numerous conferences, commission research reports, maps, images, newspaper articles, meeting minutes, just about anything that is considered university output might be stored in UWISpace. So what we're going to do now is go to UWISpace. And the URL for that is uwispace.sta.uwi.edu/dspace. UWISpace is organized into communities, and these coincide with the campuses of the University of the West Indies, with the addition of the Vice-Chancellery. There is, at this top node, or from the main page, the facility to search across all of UWISpace, as well as to browse by various criteria, be they authors, titles, subjects. I have found, in playing around with what is available here, that searching at this level is not the most effective way of searching UWISpace. It is better if you go into one of the various communities and the sub-communities within them, which then narrows the search and narrows your browse criteria so that you're not dealing with such unwieldy and large sets of data, because there are tens of thousands, if not hundreds of thousands, of documents available in UWISpace, and the search is not organized in a sophisticated enough manner to be truly useful. We're going to talk about how you can search more effectively as we go along. We're going to go into the St. Augustine community on UWISpace, and the reason we're going here is that the Faculty of Humanities and Education is at the UW St. Augustine campus, and within that faculty is the School of Education. So each click we're making here is taking us into a sub-community of the St. Augustine campus. So when I click on School of Education here, you can see that the breadcrumb is showing where we're going. And then from here, any of the searching that one conducts or the browsing is done within the context of where you find yourself in the moment. So we're going to first start with the third option here, student research. Here you will find Masters of Education project reports, as well as numerous abstracts to master's theses in process, and some full text. Navigating back to the School of Education and clicking on Academic Research, here we have three further options: Conference Papers and Proceedings, Published Papers, and the School of Education Publications, which would include something like the Caribbean Curriculum. Here there is the option to search all three collections again, but what I have found in searching here is that a lot of the results tend to be educational perspectives from the Daily Express, so opinion pieces tend to dominate at least the upper portion of search results, as well as M.Ed. abstracts to theses, which aren't necessarily all that useful from the get-go. They may be of value, but maybe less so for academic research. If I go into published papers here, we'll see that education perspectives from the Express is included. An interesting piece, however, are these journal articles. So the journal article subcommunity. And this is where, as I mentioned, UWI-affiliated researchers have deposited articles published elsewhere. So navigating back to academic research, and now into conference papers and proceedings. Here, why don't we conduct a search for science education? Oh, it's telling us we found 58 results, and we can limit these in turn if we wish to. 58 is not too bad, but let's say I wanted to filter my results to methods for scientific education. This is not necessarily going to return all the results we were looking for, because I find the organization of UWISpace is not always what one would expect. But in any case, if I put in some kind of qualifying criteria such as methods, we see in revising our search that we now have 5 results. And let's see if some of these look interesting. Let's just pick constructivism and the enabling of mathematical thinking. It gives us a bit of a record here, and it's coming from some cross-campus conference proceedings from 2007. If I click on the link to the PDF, it will then open the paper itself, at which point you can download it, print it, save it, or what have you. We're not going to wait for this to download. You just have to take my word for it that it's going to happen. If I go back to conference proceedings, or conference papers and proceedings, it should be noted that, as I mentioned, the browsing limiters to the right might be useful as a higher level entry point into a given subcommunity, either by a topic or by an author. UWI has a number of very good researchers from what I've read, and it might be useful if you have the time and interest to become familiar with those researchers whose topics or perspectives you might find interesting. Me, for example, I would say that Jerome Delisle, who is a professor at the School of Education at the University of West Indies St. Augustine campus, is probably my favorite to read, as he writes on some very interesting and informative topics around the history of education. He also offers some well-researched suggestions for new directions around school leadership, overall policy, pedagogy, curriculum development, and all sorts of things. So let's go back to academic research and access the School of Education publications. As I mentioned, Caribbean Curriculum is a St. Augustine published academic journal with contributors from across the Caribbean and, in fact, the world, and it's very worthwhile to view. The issues themselves are presented in their entirety as integral pieces, while the individual articles are also separated out. if I search all of these subcommunities within the School of Education publications for something like leadership, then it searches that and in fact finds 29 results. What leadership styles have to do with teacher job satisfaction, a review of a British Virgin Islands study. I click on that. It again takes me to a brief record. If you wanted to cite something like this, you could go down to show full item record and learn more about the piece of information you're taking a look at the moment. I'm going to go back to the very top node, or the main homepage for UWISpace now. As I mentioned, you can search across all of the information available and indeed browse by subjects, but you can see something like Trinidad and Tobago, which of course would have many results in UWISpace, has 5,300 items assigned this topic. And there's probably more than that, but I don't find that the subjects have been applied in a consistent way. Some of these results, such as these postcards, might be interesting, but if you want to search across the entire UWISpace, I would suggest trying something like Google Scholar. Scholar.google.com, although it shows up as .ca when you're in Canada. And you can search individual web pages and openly accessible databases in this manner. We can see here, if I were to put in school leadership as a search, and then to the end of my search I append site:/uwispace.sta.uwi.edu/dspace, and this will search educational leadership only in DSpace. I put in school twice by mistake. It's good to have a few mistakes in a video tutorial, I'm sure. So it's telling us it's found 69 results. If we wanted to look at the most recent results, we could filter out older material. Let's say we'll look at since 2009. When it lists something as a citation, then it's going to be typically one of these abstracts to a master's thesis, or maybe a project of some sort. Then if we take a look at the items that are not listed as citations, such as special schools in the search for social justice in Trinidad and Tobago, perspectives from two marginalized contexts, and click on the title, it takes you to the record itself, which is useful for citing, and then you can further click into the document in question, which in this case is coming from a 2010 issue of Caribbean Curriculum. So to summarize, UWISpace is an excellent place to find a variety of useful research papers on any number of given topics across disciplines, and particularly for education through the St. Augustine community. And bear in mind that this information will be available to you beyond your time as a student, so that if you're not affiliated with either UNB or UWI in the future and are still in need or interested in keeping up with relevant research in your field, then this is an excellent place to go. And perhaps searching through Google Scholar and the method described today will go some way towards making your search experience as pleasant as possible. Thank you for your attention. I hope you have an excellent day.